the actors playing the seven dwarves, which weren't dwarves at all because that would be culturally insensitive. So instead, Disney replaced the dwarves with a diverse array of magical hobos.
Sure, but she's pretty famous, and she's been in the news for bad things over the past couple of years as far as the right half of the country is concerned. Her name is Rachel Zegler.
How does a Hollywood darling go from being the future face of Disney to the actress no one wants to hire? Rachel Zegler's controversial statements, from calling Snow White outdated to wishing Trump voters never know peace,
made Trump supporters and Trump himself never know peace.
Yeah.
What the F?
Might just be the most expensive mistakes of her career. But what actually happened behind the scenes that turned Disney's fairy tale remake into a $300 million nightmare? Let's uncover the drama Disney doesn't want you to know. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now, back to the video. How do you turn one of Disney's most beloved classics into a PR disaster? Well, Rachel Zegler may have cracked the code. She went from being crowned the next Disney princess to courting controversy faster than you can say happily ever after. It all started with the announcement that she'd been cast as Snow White in Disney's live-action remake. Fans had high hopes, and Hollywood buzzed with excitement. After all, Zegler had already made waves in Spielberg's West Side Story. She was young, talented, and seemed destined to be the new face of Disney magic. But that magic started fizzling out the moment Zegler opened her mouth about the project.
Then the star of the film, Rachel Zegler, proceeded to light all that goodwill on fire. She made it clear that she thinks the story of Snow White is actually very creepy and misogynistic.
During interviews, she described the original Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs as incredibly outdated and made it clear her version wasn't going to follow the same formula.
The actors playing the seven dwarves, which weren't dwarves at all because that would be culturally insensitive. So instead, Disney replaced the dwarves with a diverse array of magical hobos.
Bye-bye to the Prince Charming storyline, she said, because, in her words, Snow White didn't need a man to rescue her.
Remember, she was out like a couple years ago being like, there's certainly not going to be a prince rescuing me, I can tell you that.
On paper, these comments might have sounded modern to some, but to many fans, it felt like an unnecessary dunk on a classic that didn't need fixing. It didn't help that she delivered these remarks with a tone that came off as dismissive. Rather than framing her take as an exciting, fresh look, it came across as, "Forget the Snow White you love, this one's better because I say so." The backlash was swift. Disney fans who grew up cherishing the original tale accused Zegler of disrespecting its legacy.
She said Disney was basically going to throw out the old story, get rid of the prince, make a film that supposedly empowers women. And
many pointed out Disney's wholesome, nostalgic reputation took a hit whenever its reboots leaned too hard into modern trends. And Zegler's comments were seen as yet another product of this pattern. The divide between keeping it classic and making it woke had already stirred arguments with movies like The Little Mermaid, but Snow White may have been the tipping point. Instead of modernizing the story, Zegler's words felt like a jab at her own fanbase. It was a move that took the joy of nostalgia and turned it into anger. But if fans thought this was bad, her next moves made things even messier. If you thought her comments about Snow White were bold, wait until you hear what Rachel Zegler had to say about half the country. During the 2024 election cycle, she hopped on Instagram and casually posted, "May Trump voters never know peace."
All of it raising questions about what Disney could do next with all this controversy surrounding the star of the show.
Sure, but she's pretty famous, and she's been in the news for bad things over the past couple of years as far as the right half of the country is concerned. Her name is Rachel Zegler.
Now, whether she was joking or just venting, that little sentence blew up into a full-on PR disaster. For a moment that likely felt clever to her, she ended up alienating a large chunk of the public, many of whom Disney depends on to buy movie tickets and streaming subscriptions. The backlash wasn't subtle either. People flooded social media, piling onto the post with anger and sarcastic remarks. while others quietly decided they'd had enough of her. Here's the thing. Disney is a brand that walks a very fine line. It thrives on wide appeal. Families, kids, grandparents, people across every political spectrum. And when you're the lead in one of their flagship projects, playing a princess no less, you're essentially signing on to become part of that all-inclusive fantasy. Making polarizing statements, especially about something as sensitive as politics, doesn't just rock the boat, it flips it over. To add fuel to the fire, Disney didn't step in to clean up the disaster. No PR statement, no context offered for her comments, just pure silence.
There are growing calls tonight for Disney to fire Rachel Zegler, the star of its widely anticipated Snow White remake.
Uncanny Valley vibe to it, and pretty much all the comments are negative. Just going through some of them. These are the top comments. In order, by the way, I'm not cherry picking, this is just the top comments.
In the world of Hollywood PR, silence often screams, "We don't want to touch this." But wait, there's more. It wasn't just her Instagram post that hurt her reputation. Reports from the set of Snow White began painting a picture of Zegler as, let's just say, a handful. Insiders whispered about clashes with directors and her insistence on rewriting her lines to better reflect her personal views. One source even claimed she talks like she's smarter than the story, which didn't sit well with others on the creative team. Allegedly, she was trying to force her modern, independent philosophy into a script built on fantasy and tradition.
Oh, man.
Hello, Disney. You're going to have to redo your film again because this woman is a pig.
Every time we check in on Disney's upcoming Snow White remake, somehow things get even worse than they were before. This is a production that went off the rails a long time ago.
When you add up the public outrage and these on-set headaches, Rachel Zegler quickly went from Disney darling to Hollywood cautionary tale. And as we'll see next, the fallout wasn't just personal. It hit Disney's bottom line hard. Rachel Zegler's story is a perfect example of how quickly things can crumble in Hollywood if you don't read the room. Here's someone handed a Disney crown, one of the most beloved characters ever, and instead of leaning into the magic, she lit a sparkler under it. From her controversial Snow White remarks to polarizing political jabs, she turned what could have been a career-defining moment into a public relations storm.
And then even Disney got on its heels and they're like, we're going to reshoot the movie immediately. Like, we're going to make some changes because there was so much backlash.
And watches the dwarves do all the work, almost sadistically, really. And once again, as you'd expect, this footage caused a backlash, and Disney quickly had it scrubbed from the internet.
It's a reminder that audiences hold on to classics for a reason. Maybe her fairy tale isn't completely over, but for now, Hollywood and fans seem to be writing their own ending.